There is a universal moment that binds all of humanity together, the moment when the day closes, the lights dim, and we are left alone with our own minds in the darkness of the night. In this sacred silence, countless men and women toss upon their beds, replaying regrets, anxieties, or unanswered petitions, their hearts whispering questions that seem to vanish into the ceiling above them. Does God hear me? Does anyone hear me? This question is not confined to the lonely or the desperate. It haunts the successful as well as the weary, for no worldly accomplishment can silence the deeper longing for assurance that our voice reaches the eternal. As you listen now, you may recall your own countless nights when words rose from your lips like smoke only to be swallowed by silence. And in those moments perhaps you wondered whether the heavens had closed, whether your prayer was too small, too weak, or whether God himself had turned away. But I say to you tonight, your prayer was never ignored, your whisper never lost, your longing never unseen. The silence was not absence, it was the stillness of the divine listening. What Joseph Murphy revealed with such authority is that God does not need thunder to answer, nor spectacle to affirm his presence. Instead, he is most attentive when your conscious mind grows quiet, when your heart speaks in the language of faith and simplicity. Every sigh, every whisper, every quiet yearning before sleep is a vibration impressed upon the subconscious mind, and the subconscious, being one with divine intelligence, always responds. It is not that God must be persuaded. It is that you must learn to impress the right idea upon your inner mind at the moment when it is most receptive. Think for a moment of the many who lie awake, filled with worry over illness, over finances, over relationships strained, or futures uncertain. Their nights are filled with tossing and turning, yet what they do not realize is that every anxious thought in those final drowsy minutes before sleep is a command impressed upon the inner self. They fall asleep rehearsing defeat, and the subconscious obediently reproduces it. This is the tragedy of ignorance. But you need not be a prisoner of restless nights or unanswered questions. For there is a law clear, certain, unbreakable, that whatever is whispered into the half-asleep mind, the subconscious accepts as fact and sets into motion. Therefore, the great shift comes when you recognize that nighttime is not a moment of abandonment, but a moment of consecration. You are not left alone in the dark. You are standing at the very threshold of divine response. The conscious chatter that resists doubts and fears begins to dissolve as you drift toward slumber, and in that soft interval the words you speak are magnified beyond measure. The invitation of this message is simple yet profound. No more wasted nights of silent fear, no more prayers half believed. Instead, you will learn to whisper the words that align you with infinite supply, unending peace, and radiant health. You will discover that what you once thought was ignored was in fact being multiplied, waiting for you to give the right seed. So if you have ever whispered into the dark and felt no reply, tonight you will discover why the silence was never silence, why your longing was never wasted. For in the stillness, the divine was listening not with ears of flesh, but through the perfect law of mind. This is not poetry, this is spiritual law. And when you learn to direct it with confidence, you will find that God not only listens when you are half asleep, he answers in the very fabric of your life. There exists a secret doorway in the human experience, a liminal threshold that every man and woman crosses each night, yet few recognize as holy. It is that fragile, tender state between waking and sleeping, when the eyes grow heavy, the body relaxes, and the conscious mind begins to surrender its grip on thought. Joseph Murphy called this the golden moment, the opening into the subconscious chamber where the divine impresses itself upon man and where man impresses his decrees upon the divine. The world has called it drowsiness, but spiritually it is a gate to heaven. In that brief and sacred passage, when reason loosens its chains and imagination rises to the throne, you are closer to the infinite than at any other moment of your day. It is there, on the edge of surrender, that every whispered word falls directly into the fertile soil of your subconscious, bypassing the harsh critic of logic, and once received there, the seed cannot be refused. Consider how often throughout your waking hours you attempt to affirm wealth, health, or peace, only to find the voice of doubt drowning out your declarations. You say, I am prosperous, but the memory of unpaid bills mocks you. You affirm, I am healthy, but the ache in your body contradicts it. The conscious mind, ever the judge, ever the skeptic, stands guard at the gates of imagination and refuses entry to the new idea. But at night, when the eyelids grow heavy and the conscious sentinel dozes, the gates swing open. The whisper spoken then is not contested, it is not argued against, it is not mocked, it is planted. It sinks into the depths of mind like a seed sinking beneath soil at springtime. And the subconscious, faithful servant of divine law sets to work immediately, drawing upon infinite intelligence to bring forth the harvest. Philosophers and mystics through the ages have spoken of this liminal state. The ancients prayed at dawn and twilight, recognizing that the border between worlds is the place of greatest power.
Even modern psychology acknowledges the hypnagogic state as uniquely potent for suggestion.
But Joseph Murphy revealed the divine dimension of this threshold. It is not merely a psychological phenomenon, it is a spiritual appointment. The moment you are half asleep, you are standing in the vestibule of God's temple, where words are no longer casual but creative decrees. To whisper here is to carve upon eternity. Think of it like entering a grand cathedral. In the daylight, the cathedral is noisy, filled with tourists, distractions, and chatter. But at night, when the candles flicker and silence reigns, every word spoken echoes with power. So it is with your subconscious at half sleep. The distractions of the day are hushed. The intellect lays down its arms, and the whisper you speak becomes a ringing decree in the halls of the spirit. If you whisper fear, the echo resounds with fear. If you whisper lack, the echo multiplies lack. But if you whisper faith, love, healing, and prosperity, those words reverberate in your being until they take flesh in your experience. Therefore, see half sleep not as a casual passing moment, but as a sacred threshold, a doorway into infinite communion. Do not stumble into it with careless thoughts or idle worries, for they too are impressions and will bear fruit. Enter it instead with reverence, with intention, with words chosen as carefully as the priest chooses his prayer. For the half-asleep state is no less than the place where heaven bends down to earth and earth whispers back to heaven, and in that holy exchange destiny is written. Every man and woman who has ever prayed, who has ever longed for change, who has ever whispered words of hope into the night, knows the sting of disappointment when the desired answer seems to delay or never come. At the root of this disappointment lies not the absence of God's listening ear, but the presence of a barrier within the barrier of unbelief. It is not that the divine refuses your petition. It is that the conscious mind, with its fears and doubts, blocks the very seed from reaching the soil of the subconscious. Imagine a farmer who scatters seed upon hard stone. No matter how fertile the seed may be, no growth will occur until the soil is open. So too, when your words of prayer are sown upon the hardened surface of disbelief, they wither before they can take root. The tragedy is not in God's unwillingness, for God is ever willing. It is in man's inability to still the inner doubter, to silence the critic that whispers, "This cannot be." And yet there is hope, for each night you are given a divine opportunity to slip past the guards of fear and unbelief. As you drift into half-sleep, the stern judge of your conscious mind begins to grow weary. The voice that argued against your affirmations during the day, the voice that said, "You are too sick, too poor, too unworthy," nods off, and in that moment, you can walk past, unchallenged, into the temple of spirit. Joseph Murphy described it beautifully. It is as if the guards of the fortress have dozed at their post, and you, with your sacred word, enter into the sanctuary where no resistance stands. This is the moment when faith can bypass doubt, when suggestion can slip into the subconscious unopposed, and once received there, it becomes law. Consider how many prayers fail, not because the formula was wrong, or because the words were flawed, but because the speaker whispered them while clinging to disbelief. They said, "I am healed," yet secretly they thought, "But the doctor's report says otherwise." They affirmed, "I am prosperous." But beneath the words was the anxious vibration of lack. The subconscious does not respond to empty phrases. It responds to belief impregnated with emotion. And so the doubting mind becomes a thief, stealing power from the very prayer that might have saved you. But when half sleep comes, this thief lays down his weapon, and the subconscious, open and receptive, accepts the word as unquestioned truth. This illumination must sink deep into your heart. God is not distant, withholding blessings until you earn them. No, the divine is present in every moment, waiting only for you to speak the word in faith. But because the conscious mind is so often the battlefield of doubt, God in his wisdom has provided you this nightly window, the sacred interval of half sleep, where faith can shine through unhindered. In this interval, the whisper of truth is more powerful than the loudest shout during the day, because it is not contradicted, not analyzed, not resisted. It is impressed upon the inner self, and once impressed, the subconscious, which is one with infinite intelligence, must express it in your life. Therefore, the barrier of unbelief is not permanent. It is dissolved each night as you pass through the sacred threshold of half sleep. Recognize this mercy and do not waste it. Do not let your last thoughts be filled with resentment, worry, or fear, for these too are accepted as decrees. Instead, speak the word of faith gently, assuredly, reverently, knowing that as you do, you are bypassing the doubter, slipping past the guards, and entering the inner temple where God listens and responds. And as you persist in this holy practice, the barrier of unbelief will crumble altogether, and you will awaken each day not only with renewed hope, but with the evidence of answered prayer blossoming in your life. At the heart of Joseph Murphy's teaching lies a principle so simple that the intellectual mind often dismisses it, and yet so profound that those who grasp it find their entire lives transformed. The subconscious mind is the channel through which man communicates with God, and God communicates with man. This is not to say that God is confined within the boundaries of your mind, but that the subconscious is the meeting place, the inner sanctuary where the infinite impresses its wisdom, and where you impress your desires upon the infinite. It is the inner holy of holies, a temple not built with hands, where no priest is needed, but your own willingness to believe. In this sanctuary, words are not mere vibrations of the vocal cords. They are decrees of spirit, creative commands that set unseen forces into motion. When Christ declared, "Ask and it shall be given you, seek and you shall find, knock and it shall be opened," he was not pointing to a distant deity that reluctantly answers petitions. He was revealing the law of mind, that what is asked and accepted by the subconscious must be expressed in the world. Think of your conscious mind as the scribe, shaping words, choosing images, arranging thoughts, while the subconscious is the fertile soil in which these seeds are planted. If the conscious scribe writes in fear, doubt, and limitation, the soil faithfully reproduces weeds. If the scribe writes in faith, assurance, and love, the soil brings forth a harvest of blessing. The subconscious does not argue. It accepts. It does not reason. It obeys. It does not mock. It manifests. Thus, the question is never whether God is listening, for he listens through the law of subconscious impression. The question is only whether you are impressing the truth or a lie, whether you are whispering health or disease, abundance or lack, peace or turmoil. It is here that the act of whispering before sleep becomes not a quaint ritual, but a profound spiritual technology. At the moment when your conscious defenses fade, when you are half asleep, your whisper carries the weight of law. It is as if you stand before the inner altar, and every word spoken is inscribed upon the tablets of the subconscious. Whisper, "I am whole," and the subconscious inscribes wholeness. Whisper, "I am supplied," and the subconscious sets into motion unseen channels of provision. Whisper, "I am at peace," and the subconscious releases soothing balm through your nervous system, your heartbeat, your very breath. In this way, you are not begging God to notice you. You are participating in the divine law that has noticed you all along. Consider the biblical truth. The kingdom of God is within you. This was not poetry. It was precise instruction. The divine has placed within your own being the law of creation, and your subconscious is the governor of that law. When you declare truth in the half-asleep state, you are not sending words into the void, you are planting them into the very engine of your life. Just as the sun rises without fail when the earth turns, so too will your subconscious bring forth what you plant within it. To doubt this is to misunderstand the nature of God's faithfulness, for God's faithfulness is expressed in law, and the law is no respecter of persons. It operates for saint and sinner, for the wise and the ignorant. Just as the law of gravity holds all men alike, the difference lies not in the law, but in man's use of it. So recognize this: your subconscious communication is holy. Every whisper before sleep is a prayer heard, not by straining upward into the sky, but by resonating inward into the divine within you. And because God and your subconscious are one in law, there can be no delay in answer. The moment the word is impressed, the work is begun. It may unfold gradually, like a seed sprouting, or suddenly, like light flooding a room, but the answer is certain. Whisper then with reverence, with joy, with assurance, for you are speaking not into emptiness, but into the womb of creation itself, and God listens through the ear of your subconscious, eager to bring forth that which aligns with his eternal order of life, abundance, and peace. There was once a man, a successful businessman by outward appearance, who lived in a city where fortune smiled upon him by day but deserted him at night. By day he conducted meetings, signed contracts, and played the role of confidence and control. But when evening came and the doors of his office closed, he carried home with him an invisible burden. Each night he lay upon his bed staring into the ceiling, his mind racing with the figures of debt, the uncertainties of future deals, the gnawing fear that one wrong decision could topple everything he had built. His body would not rest, for his heart throbbed with the rhythm of anxiety, and his spirit sank beneath the weight of endless calculations. Though he recited prayers, they were empty, mechanical phrases that never reached the place of power, for he spoke them with lips alone while his heart whispered in fear. And so, like many men and women in the world, he thought God had abandoned him to the cruel silence of sleepless nights. One evening, weary beyond measure, he stumbled upon a lecture by Joseph Murphy. There he heard words that struck him like a thunderbolt, wrapped in gentleness. Whatever you impress upon your subconscious before sleep will be expressed in your world. God listens through your inner mind, and what you whisper in that twilight hour is written upon the scroll of your destiny. The businessman sat frozen, for never had he considered that his nightly rehearsals of worry were not harmless thoughts, but commands, decrees that his subconscious faithfully executed. He realized with sudden horror and sudden hope that he had been planting weeds in the garden of his life, watering them with every anxious repetition. But the hope was greater than the horror, for if weeds could grow so faithfully, then surely flowers of faith could too. That night he resolved to try the method. As he lay in bed and felt the familiar tide of fear rising, he placed his hand gently upon his chest and whispered, not loudly, not with strain, but softly, as though speaking to a beloved child, "Infinite supply flows to me now. God is my unfailing source. I rest in abundance." His conscious mind resisted. Of course it said, "This is foolish. Look at your accounts. Look at your debts." But he remembered Murphy's teaching, that half sleep was the sacred threshold, and so he persisted with tenderness rather than force. He whispered again and again until his mind softened, his breathing deepened, and at last he drifted into slumber with those words echoing like a lullaby. The next morning nothing dramatic occurred, but something subtle had shifted. He awoke lighter, less anxious. The day unfolded with small coincidences. An overdue client suddenly paid his invoice, a new opportunity arrived unexpectedly, and most of all, the sharp grip of fear began to release its hold upon his body. Night after night he continued the ritual. Each evening, as his mind began to drift, he whispered the same affirmation of abundance and peace, until his subconscious, like fertile soil receiving seed, began to bear fruit. Within a month, solutions appeared to problems that had tormented him. New channels of income opened where he had seen only dead ends, and his body began to experience the rest that had eluded him for years. He discovered that the miracle was not in money falling from the sky, but in the transformation of his inner climate. For as his mind accepted abundance, the outer world rearranged itself to mirror that acceptance. This man's story is not unique. It is a parable of countless lives. The sleepless businessman represents every soul who has lain awake doubting whether God hears. His deliverance came not through frantic effort or desperate pleading, but through a whisper in the half-asleep state, a whisper that bypassed the noisy arguments of reason and planted truth directly into the subconscious. His life became living proof that miracles often arrive quietly, like dawn breaking after a long night. And so we learn from him this reassurance: when you whisper words of truth as you drift into sleep, the silence is not empty, for God is listening, and the universe itself bends to honor the decree spoken in faith. One of the greatest errors of the human heart is to believe that prayer is begging. Many approach the infinite as though they were beggars at the gates of a king, pleading for scraps, hoping that their cries might soften a distant deity. But Joseph Murphy revealed a truth both startling and liberating. Your whispered words are not supplications to an unwilling God. They are divine commands issued to the subconscious, which is the instrument of infinite intelligence itself. When you whisper before sleep, you are not groveling in uncertainty. You are exercising the creative authority given to you from the beginning. Just as the Creator in Genesis spoke, "Let there be light," and the command brought forth illumination, so too does your whispered decree carry the weight of law. The subconscious does not question the legitimacy of your authority. It accepts your word as final and sets in motion forces that align heaven and earth to fulfill it. Think of the difference in vibration between a beggar and a commander. The beggar says, "Please, if it is possible, if I am worthy, give me this one thing," and his subconscious receives not faith but fear, not certainty but doubt. The commander, however, speaks with quiet assurance, "This is mine now. By divine right, I accept it. I claim it." And the subconscious, ever obedient, responds, "Yes, master. This is not arrogance, it is alignment." To whisper as a commander is to recognize that you are made in the image of the Creator, endowed with the same creative faculty of speech and imagination. To whisper in half-sleep with authority is to affirm your place as co-creator with God, not as a beggar at his feet, but as a child in his household, free to draw from the infinite treasury. Therefore, your whisper must be shaped with precision. It must be short, clear, affirmative, and in the present tense. The subconscious is like fertile soil. It cannot germinate seeds of doubt or half-belief. Do not say, "I will be healed someday," for the subconscious knows only the eternal now. Instead, declare, "I am healed now. Every cell of my body is alive with divine order." Do not murmur, "I hope I will have enough," for hope without faith is uncertainty. Instead, whisper, "Infinite supply flows to me now. I am rich in every way." Do not cry, "Maybe peace will come," but affirm, "I rest in God's peace this very moment." In these simple, commanding phrases lies the difference between a prayer that drifts into the void and a decree that reshapes reality. When you understand this law, you realize that whispering before sleep is not a weak act of desperation, but a royal act of creation. It is the moment when you take the pen of spirit and write upon the tablets of the subconscious, "This is who I am, this is what I have, this is what I will experience." And because the subconscious is one with the law of God, what is written must be manifested. It is not a matter of if, but when, for the law cannot be broken. Just as the seed planted in soil must produce after its kind, so too must the whispered word bring forth its likeness in your life. So tonight, when you lay down your head and feel yourself slipping into that sacred threshold, remember this: you are not a beggar muttering in fear. You are a commander issuing a decree. Your whisper is not a question mark sent into the dark, but an exclamation point inscribed upon eternity. Speak as one who knows that the law is faithful. Speak as one who knows that God listens through your subconscious and delights to fulfill his promises. Speak as one who knows that heaven bends low when you whisper in faith. And when you do, You will find that your words are not empty breath, but divine commands, creative fiats that shape the unseen and call forth the visible. To transform knowledge into power, there must be practice. For without application, even the most radiant truth remains an unused treasure locked in a chest. Joseph Murphy insisted that the subconscious responds not to vague hopes, but to specific impressions, and so he gave practical methods to ensure that your whispered words at night enter the deeper mind with force and clarity. The first step in this sacred practice is to create a ritual of acceptance, a simple yet profound act that unites body, mind, and spirit in harmony. When you prepare to sleep, do not treat your bed as a place of restless tossing, but as an altar upon which your mind communes with the infinite. Approach it not with anxiety, but with reverence, as though you were entering a sanctuary where the divine awaits your word. Begin by laying yourself comfortably, for the body must be at ease if the spirit is to speak with freedom. Place one hand gently upon your heart, not in strain, not as if forcing, but softly, tenderly, as though greeting the very center of your being. The heart is more than a physical organ. It is the symbolic seat of love, life, and divine order. When your hand rests upon it, you establish an intimate connection between the whisper of your lips and the rhythm of your existence. Then, as you feel the quiet throb beneath your palm, let your breath slow and steady, for the breath is the bridge between conscious and subconscious, the rhythm that unites mind and body. Now whisper your chosen phrase. Do not shout, do not strain, let it be as soft as the murmur of a mother to her child, as gentle as wind through the leaves. Say, I am whole. I am at peace. God's life flows through me now. Or shape words that suit the longing of your soul. Infinite supply is mine now. Or divine love surrounds and fills me. Speak it once, twice, 10 times, until the sound itself feels as though it has melted into your heartbeat. Feel each syllable sinking as a drop of water sinks into the deep well of your being. There is no rush, no urgency. You are not trying to convince anyone. You are simply planting seeds, and every whisper is a seed of eternity. The power of this ritual lies in its simplicity. By placing your hand over your heart, you anchor the whisper in physical sensation, ensuring that it is not merely a thought drifting away, but an embodied impression. The subconscious loves symbols, and this simple gesture becomes a symbol of sincerity, signaling that these words are not casual chatter but sacred decrees. The act of whispering rather than shouting bypasses resistance, for the subconscious responds most readily to quiet assurance, not to desperate force. It is like feeding a sleeping child. You do not shake him awake. You slip nourishment into his hand. So too, the subconscious, half asleep itself, receives the whisper with tenderness and imprints it without argument. Persist nightly with this practice, and you will discover that your subconscious begins to accept these whispers not as foreign commands, but as familiar truths. At first, the words may feel strange, even unbelievable, but as repetition continues, they take on the tone of reality. The subconscious cannot distinguish between what is vividly imagined and what is physically experienced. It knows only what is impressed with feeling. By marrying your whisper with a gesture of the heart, you create an impression stamped not only with sound, but with sensation and emotion, and such impressions the subconscious cannot resist. Thus, the ritual becomes the doorway through which your word passes into law, and God, listening through your inner mind, sets into motion the healing, the supply, and the peace you decree. Once you have learned the gentle art of placing your hand upon your heart and whispering your decree as though speaking to the very essence of life itself, the next step is to deepen this practice by uniting your breath with your word. Breath is not a mere biological function. It is the rhythm of spirit moving through flesh, the ceaseless tide that connects your finite body to the infinite sea of divine energy. From the first breath at birth to the final exhalation at death, it is the thread that binds you to the source, and every inhalation is a gift, while every exhalation is a surrender. To synchronize your whisper with this rhythm is to allow your word to ride upon the very current of life, sinking deeper into the subconscious with every breath you release. As you lie upon your bed and feel the heaviness of sleep drawing near, begin by focusing upon your breathing. Do not attempt to control it harshly, but notice its natural flow, the rise of the chest, the gentle fall, the quiet passage of air. With each inhale, imagine that you are drawing in the light of God, a luminous energy that fills every corner of your being. With each exhale, imagine that you are releasing not only breath, but tension, doubt, and fear, letting them dissolve into the infinite night. Now, when you whisper your chosen phrase, allow it to accompany the exhale. Let the words move outward as your breath flows, as though your whisper is being carried upon a river that flows from your heart into the depths of your subconscious. Whisper softly, I rest in God's peace. Exhale gently, releasing the phrase into silence. Whisper again, every cell of my body is radiant with divine health. Exhale, and feel the words drift downward like golden leaves upon a stream. Whisper, infinite supply flows to me now. Exhale, and know that your word has been carried past the doubting mind, delivered into the fertile chamber of your inner self. In this way, every breath becomes a messenger, every exhalation a sacred offering, every whisper a decree sealed by the very rhythm of life. This practice is not only powerful, but profoundly soothing. As your whisper aligns with your breath, your nervous system calms, your body relaxes, and your entire being enters into harmony. The whisper becomes less an effort of will and more a natural rhythm, like the tide of the ocean kissing the shore. The conscious mind surrenders fully, and the subconscious, lulled by the steady flow, opens wide its gates to receive. This is why Joseph Murphy insisted that whispers timed with breath were among the most potent forms of prayer, because they bypass argument entirely and slip into the inner mind with ease. And as you continue night after night, you will notice something extraordinary. Your whisper and your breath will become one. You will no longer think of the phrase as something you are forcing into your mind, but as something that arises naturally with the flow of life itself. It will be as though the infinite is breathing through you, whispering through you, affirming through you. Your breath will become God's breath. Your word, God's word, your whisper, God's command. In that holy unity, nothing can resist the fulfillment of your decree, for it is not merely you speaking, it is the Spirit within you breathing life into the word and sealing it into law. So remember, when you practice this ritual, you are not merely exhaling air, you are exhaling power, truth, and destiny. Each whisper upon the breath is like incense rising in the temple, invisible yet filling the sanctuary with fragrance. And as the fragrance fills the subconscious, the divine responds, not with delay, not with hesitation, but with the certainty of law. Your breath is God's breath, carrying your decree inward. Let that be your assurance, and let it transform every night into a sacrament of creation. If there is one law that undergirds all spiritual psychology, it is the law of repetition. What is repeated with feeling and constancy becomes impressed upon the subconscious, and what is impressed upon the subconscious inevitably expresses itself in the world of form. Joseph Murphy often reminded his listeners that the subconscious does not grow weary of hearing the same truth again and again. Rather, it welcomes repetition, for repetition is the language by which it learns, the rhythm by which it accepts. Just as a child learns its mother tongue not through one utterance, but through countless repetitions heard daily until speech flows naturally, so too does the subconscious acquire the language of faith by hearing the same decree over and over until it becomes its native thought. When you whisper once, the seed is planted. But when you whisper again and again, night after night, you water that seed, nurture it, and protect it until it sprouts. Many make the mistake of whispering once or twice, and then abandoning the practice, saying, "It did not work for me." They do not realize that the law is like agriculture. No farmer sows seeds one evening and expects a harvest by morning. He waters, he waits, he trusts the invisible processes beneath the soil. So too must you persist in repetition. For every whisper before sleep is a drop of water nourishing the seed of truth. Even if you see no outward change at first, the inner processes are at work, and in time the harvest appears. The practice is simple, yet profound. Choose your phrase carefully, a short affirmation that carries the essence of what you desire in the present tense. For health, whisper, "I am healed." Every cell of my body responds to divine order. For supply, whisper, I am abundantly provided for. Infinite riches flow to me now. For peace, whisper, I rest in God's peace. My mind is stilled. My heart is calm. Do not make the phrase long or complicated, for the subconscious receives best what is simple, rhythmic, and filled with emotion. Whisper it once, pause, whisper it again, and continue until drowsiness overtakes you. If you should fall asleep while whispering, rejoice, for that is the perfect moment when the words sink deepest. Repetition in this half-asleep state is far more potent than shouting affirmations in the daylight. In the day, the conscious mind interrupts, analyzes, and often rejects. At night, repetition creates a rhythm that bypasses the doubter and establishes the phrase as unquestioned fact. Imagine a lullaby sung to a child. The repetition is not annoying, it is soothing, comforting, convincing. The child relaxes, not because the song is new each time, but because it is the same steady, familiar tune. So too with your subconscious, it does not need novelty, it needs certainty. And certainty is built through repetition. As you continue this practice, you will find that the phrase begins to echo within you even in your waking hours. Without conscious effort, it will rise in your mind during the day, calming you, guiding you, reminding you of the law at work. This is a sign that the subconscious has accepted it, that the seed has germinated and is pushing upward into the light of consciousness. At that point, manifestation is inevitable, for what the subconscious accepts must eventually be seen in the outer world. Therefore, make repetition your ally. Do not whisper once and expect magic, but whisper nightly with patience, with faith, with gentle persistence. Each repetition is a brushstroke, painting the image of your desired reality upon the canvas of the subconscious. And just as the painter repeats strokes until the masterpiece is complete, so too must you repeat until your life reveals the beauty of your decree. Whisper, I am healed, I am whole, I am supplied, again and again, until the subconscious sings it back to you as its own eternal song. For in that moment, heaven and earth will conspire to make it true, because what is impressed must be expressed, and the law of repetition guarantees that your whispered truth will one day stand visible before your eyes. In a quiet neighborhood lived a woman who for many years had carried the heavy burden of arthritis. Her joints ached with every movement. Her mornings were battles against stiffness, and her nights were battles against sleeplessness brought on by pain. She had tried every manner of remedy that the world could offer: medications, ointments, diets, and endless appointments with physicians, yet relief was always temporary, fleeting, like a drop of water upon desert sand. She began to feel that her life was narrowing, her world closing in upon her, as simple joys like walking in her garden or holding her grandchildren seemed stolen from her by a cruel fate. And in her despair, she began to believe the grim verdict whispered by her conscious mind: this is incurable. This is your fate. You must endure until the end. But one evening, while searching for solace, she discovered Joseph Murphy's teaching on the power of the subconscious mind. She listened with tears streaming down her cheeks as he declared, every cell of your body responds to the images and commands you impress upon the subconscious. If you whisper health before sleep, your subconscious will accept it and reproduce it in your body. For the first time in years, a spark of hope glimmered in her heart. She thought, if my subconscious has been listening to the whispers of pain, of fear, of hopelessness, then perhaps it will listen to new whispers, whispers of healing and life. That night, as she lay upon her bed, her body aching as always, she placed her hand upon her heart and whispered softly, every cell of my body is now filled with the life of God. I am whole. I am strong. I am healed. The conscious mind, of course, scoffed. It said, look at your swollen joints. You are lying to yourself. But she remembered Murphy's counsel. Half-sleep is the moment when the guards of doubt are drowsy, when the whisper can slip past unchallenged. So she persisted. She whispered again and again, aligning her words with her breath, letting the phrase float gently into the silence of her inner temple. At last, drowsiness overtook her. and she drifted into sleep with those words as her final thought. In the morning she did not awaken cured. Her joints still ached. Yet something within her had shifted. An ember of faith glowed quietly in her heart. She repeated the practice the next night, and the next, and the next. For weeks she persisted, whispering as she drifted into slumber, "I am whole. I am healed. Every cell responds to divine order." And gradually the pain began to recede. At first it was subtle and easier morning, a less painful walk. But as the weeks turned to months, her body began to reflect the steady command of her subconscious. The swelling diminished, her mobility returned, and she found herself walking again in her garden, bending to smell the roses, laughing freely with her grandchildren. The transformation was not sudden like a lightning bolt. It was gradual like dawn breaking after a long night. Yet it was undeniable, and when her friends asked how she had recovered, she did not speak of a new medicine or therapy. She said simply, "I whispered health before I slept, and my subconscious listened." Her story spread, and others, hearing of her quiet miracle, began to practice the same nightly ritual. Many found relief not only from physical ailments, but from anxiety, depression, and fear. This woman's healing is a testimony to the immutable law of subconscious impression. She proved that even when the conscious mind mocks, even when evidence screams against it, the quiet persistence of faith whispered in the half-asleep state can rewrite the body's destiny. She discovered that arthritis was not her fate, but her former suggestion, and by planting new suggestions, she created new flesh, new health, new joy. And her story now stands as a beacon for all who suffer. If you will but whisper truth before sleep, gently, consistently, faithfully, the silence will not betray you. God listens through your subconscious, and your body, obedient to divine order, will mirror the decree of your whispered words. There comes a point in the practice of whispering before sleep when words alone, though powerful, must be clothed with imagery to reach their fullest potency. For the subconscious mind is not a sterile machine that responds only to syllables. It is the rich soil of imagination, the hidden painter's canvas upon which emotion and image together leave indelible strokes. Joseph Murphy taught that the subconscious responds most readily to pictures charged with feeling, for it speaks in symbols and impressions, in visions alive with emotion. Thus, when you whisper your decree, you must not allow it to remain cold or mechanical, but you must ignite it with a picture and baptize it with feeling, creating what may be called the emotion-driven imagery loop. Imagine yourself lying in bed, whispering softly, "Every cell of my body is radiant with divine health." If you leave it at that, the words may sink in, yes, but their depth will be limited. Now, instead, as you whisper, picture a radiant golden light streaming through your body, every joint, every organ, every fiber suffused with warm brilliance. See the light flowing through your bloodstream, illuminating each cell as though the divine itself were shining from within. Do not see it, vaguely see it as clearly as if it were happening this very moment. Then, as you see it, feel it. Let warmth spread in your imagination until your body responds with a sense of calm and comfort. As your whisper continues, the image and the feeling loop back into the subconscious, each whisper deepening the impression until it is no longer merely thought but experienced reality within. This loop of whisper, image, and feeling is what convinces the subconscious beyond all argument. For the subconscious cannot distinguish between what is vividly imagined and what is physically experienced. It accepts both as equally real. This is why athletes who mentally rehearse their performance improve as though they had physically trained, and why fearful imaginings produce real symptoms in the body. If fear-filled pictures can create disease, then surely faith-filled pictures can create healing. When you combine your whispered affirmation with a luminous inner vision, you are rewriting the very blueprint of your body and soul. Let us take another example. If your need is peace of mind, do not merely whisper, "I am at peace." As you breathe out those words, picture yourself walking through a serene garden at dawn, the air cool, the sky painted with tender colors, every flower opening to the light. Hear the soft rustle of leaves, feel the stillness wrapping you like a gentle cloak, and most of all, let yourself feel the ease, the quiet joy, the unshakable calm. Whisper the word, hold the picture, feel the peace again and again, until it becomes a rhythm, a loop that bypasses reason and settles deep within the subconscious. In this way, your whispers are not isolated sounds, but living experiences. Each night, you create a sacred rehearsal of your future, and because the subconscious must express what is impressed, that future will inevitably rise to meet you in the outer world. The secret is persistence. The loop must be repeated nightly until the subconscious adopts the picture as its own. And once it does, your body, your circumstances, and your destiny must rearrange themselves to mirror the image you have planted. Thus, the whisper becomes the brushstroke, the image, the canvas, and the emotion, the color, together painting a masterpiece upon the eternal gallery of your life. When the whisper has been joined with vivid imagery and feeling, there remains yet a higher octave to this sacred practice, the infusion of gratitude. For gratitude is the soul's recognition that the prayer is already answered, the subconscious already convinced, the divine already at work. Gratitude transforms your whisper from a plea into a proclamation, from a desire into a possession. Joseph Murphy often reminded his readers that faith is not hoping something will occur in the distant future, but knowing that it is already accomplished in the invisible, awaiting only its appearance in the visible. Gratitude is the emotional signature of that knowing. It says, I rejoice now, for it is mine now. Therefore, when you lie in bed and whisper your affirmation, add to it the vision of already possessing what you seek and the deep feeling of thankfulness that it is so. If you are whispering for health, picture yourself rising in the morning free of pain, walking with lightness, breathing with ease, smiling at the sunlight. As you whisper, every cell of my body is radiant with divine health. Feel gratitude as though you are already experiencing that vitality, already enjoying the freedom of movement, already basking in strength. Let your heart swell with thankfulness, not for what is coming, but for what is now true in the invisible. That gratitude married to your whisper is irresistible to the subconscious. If your whisper concerns abundance, do not stop at the words, infinite supply flows to me now. Imagine yourself joyfully paying every bill with ease, generously giving to others, living in a home of comfort and beauty, surrounded by the sense of provision. Whisper the affirmation, then smile inwardly, even outwardly, as though the wealth is already yours, for in truth, it is already yours in the unseen. Feel gratitude as though the money is in your hands, the opportunities already unfolding, the channels already open. That sense of gratitude seals the impression and convinces the subconscious with authority. In this loop of whisper, image, and gratitude, the subconscious cannot resist. The whisper provides the command, the image provides the blueprint, and gratitude provides the emotional conviction. Together they form a circuit of power, a self-reinforcing loop where thought, picture, and feeling continually affirm one another until the subconscious yields completely. And once the subconscious accepts the decree, the law of mind ensures its expression. It may come through gradual unfolding or sudden breakthrough, but come it must, for law is unbreakable. Consider how a farmer, after planting and watering, lives in quiet gratitude for the harvest he knows will come. He does not dig up the seed each morning to see if it has sprouted. He gives thanks, tends the soil, and trusts the process. So too with your subconscious. Each night you whisper, each image you hold, each wave of gratitude you feel is like watering the seed. The gratitude proves to the subconscious that you believe, that you accept, that you already possess. And so it begins to work with greater speed, greater force, aligning circumstances, stirring ideas, opening doors, until what you whispered in half-sleep blossoms in full daylight. Thus, the practice becomes a holy triad. Whisper, visualize, and give thanks. Do not leave out the last, for without gratitude, the whisper may remain a hope, but with gratitude, it becomes a certainty. Gratitude is the soul's seal, the divine signature at the bottom of your decree. And when you fall asleep with whisper, image, and thanksgiving alive in your heart, you enter into rest not as a beggar longing for scraps, but as an heir rejoicing in his inheritance. In that moment, heaven smiles, the subconscious obeys, and God himself affirms, "It is done." To fully appreciate the mystery and the majesty of this practice, one must pause to ask, why does the half-asleep state hold such extraordinary power? Why is it that words whispered in those liminal moments penetrate so much deeper than declarations made during the brightness of the day? The answer lies not only in psychology, but in philosophy and theology. For the twilight state between waking and sleeping is the borderland where human limitation fades and divine possibility rises. It is the sacred threshold where reason bows and imagination reigns, where the conscious judge lays down his gavel and the creative dreamer takes the throne. Joseph Murphy described this state as the open gateway to the subconscious, but it is more than mere openness. It is communion, the meeting place of the finite and the infinite. In your waking hours, the conscious mind is like a vigilant sentinel, tirelessly questioning, doubting, analyzing, and filtering every thought. If you affirm, "I am wealthy," it quickly retorts, "but your bank account is empty." If you whisper, "I am healed," it cries, "but your body still aches." This ceaseless chatter is useful for navigating the physical world, yet it is a tyrant when you attempt to impress new truths upon the inner mind. But in half-sleep, this tyrant grows weary. The sentinel nods off at his post, and the gates of imagination swing open. In that stillness, suggestion passes freely into the subconscious, and what is received there must eventually be expressed in your outer world. This is why Murphy emphasized that half-sleep is the most fertile time for reprogramming, for in that borderland the soil of mind is richest and most ready to receive seed. Philosophically, this state is liminality, the condition of standing at the threshold, neither here nor there, neither fully awake nor fully asleep. Across cultures and centuries, liminality has been recognized as a place of transformation. Dawn and dusk are sacred hours, rivers and doorways are mystical spaces, deserts and wildernesses are proving grounds. The ancients understood that at the borders of experience the veil between worlds thins, and so too with half-sleep. It is the personal threshold where the veil between your conscious will and your subconscious power dissolves, allowing communication with the infinite to flow unhindered. Theologically, this state reflects the biblical command, "Be still and know that I am God." It is in stillness that divine recognition comes, not in frantic effort. When you are half asleep, your body is still, your conscious mind is still, and in that stillness the whisper of spirit can be heard clearly. It is not coincidence that prophets, mystics, and saints often receive visions in dreams or twilight states. Jacob saw the ladder to heaven while sleeping. Joseph received divine guidance through dreams. Samuel heard the voice of God calling in the night. These were not accidents of timing, but revelations of law. When man is half asleep, he is most receptive to the divine voice. Even modern science, without grasping the spiritual depth, acknowledges the hypnagogic state as uniquely powerful for creativity, problem-solving, and suggestion. Thomas Edison, Salvador Dali, and other geniuses deliberately lingered in this twilight zone to capture insights and ideas. But Joseph Murphy went beyond science, declaring that this state is not only fertile for imagination, it is the appointed altar where man speaks to God and God answers through law. To whisper here is not merely to influence the subconscious, but to commune with the infinite in the most intimate way possible. Thus, the reason half asleep works is not mere chance, nor psychological quirk, nor mystical superstition. It is the fulfillment of divine design. God, in his wisdom, created a nightly passageway through which the burdened conscious mind must surrender, giving each soul a daily opportunity to plant new seeds of destiny. To ignore it is to squander a treasure. To use it is to transform one's life. For in that twilight moment you are not struggling, you are not striving, you are standing in the holy vestibule of eternity, whispering decrees that heaven itself receives as law. And when you awaken, you step back into the daylight, not as a beggar of blessings, but as a creator who has sown wisely in the field of spirit, and whose harvest is even now growing beneath the soil of the unseen. There was once a young boy no older than 12, whose heart trembled as he faced the coming of his examinations. His teachers had warned him that the test would be difficult. His classmates whispered their fears, and in the quiet of his own room he felt the creeping dread that he was not bright enough, not strong enough, not capable of success. Each night he lay awake, his small body restless upon the bed, repeating to himself the words of failure that had been impressed upon him: I will forget. I will fail. I am not smart. His mind became a battlefield, and the more he tried to study, the more his nerves clouded his memory. What should have been a season of growth turned into a shadow of despair. But this boy was blessed with a mother who, though not a scholar herself, understood something of the law of the mind. She had read Joseph Murphy's writings and believed that what is whispered before sleep imprints itself upon the subconscious with irresistible power. So one evening, when she found her son weeping quietly into his pillow, she knelt beside him, placed her hand gently upon his shoulder, and said, My child, God has given you a wonderful mind, and it remembers everything you need to know. Tonight, instead of worrying, we will whisper together. We will plant new words in your heart. The boy, though skeptical, loved and trusted his mother, and so he agreed. That night, with the lamp turned low and the air hushed, the mother guided her son into the practice. She said, Place your hand upon your heart, breathe slowly, and repeat after me. My mind is clear. My memory is strong. God guides me and brings every answer to me. At first, the boy's voice shook with doubt, but his mother encouraged him gently, saying, Again, my son, whisper it again. And so he repeated it again and again, until the words began to take on rhythm, until his breathing softened, until drowsiness crept into his eyes. With each whisper, he imagined himself sitting at the desk, smiling as he wrote the answers, calm and confident. And as he drifted into sleep, the last thought upon his lips was not I will fail, but God guides me. The following morning, something remarkable had shifted. The boy woke with a quiet confidence, as though the heaviness that had crushed him was lifted. He studied with clarity, his memory responding with ease. On the day of the exam, he sat in the classroom and felt the calm assurance of his whispered words return to him. Questions that once seemed impossible now appeared simple. Answers flowed as though they had been waiting all along, and he completed the test not with dread but with quiet joy. When the results came, he had passed with distinction. His teachers marveled, but the boy knew the true secret. He had whispered success into his subconscious, and God had listened. Years later, as the boy grew into a man, he carried that lesson with him into every challenge. Whenever fear rose before him, whether in studies, work, or life, he remembered the night his mother taught him to whisper truth before sleep. And each time he practiced, doors opened, clarity returned, and peace filled his mind. His story is a parable for all of us. Anxiety whispers failure, but faith whispers victory. And when faith is whispered in the half-asleep state, the subconscious obeys and the divine orchestrates circumstances to fulfill the decree. So if even a child, trembling with fear, could be transformed into a confident victor by one night of whispered truth, how much more can you, with persistence and understanding, transform your life? The child's exam was a small thing in the world's eyes, but for him it was everything, and it proved the law works unfailingly. For the subconscious does not measure problems by size. It responds to suggestion equally, whether it concerns a test at school or the great trials of adulthood. Whisper with faith, and you will find that the same God who guided the boy to success will guide you also, for he listens whenever his children whisper in trust, especially when they are half asleep and open to his eternal law. Among the many needs that drive people to prayer, the cry for healing is perhaps the deepest and most urgent. A body in pain, a mind troubled by sickness, a heart weary from years of affliction, all these create a longing so fierce that one feels as though the very soul itself is imprisoned. And yet, Joseph Murphy taught that within every person lies a pattern of perfect health, an indestructible blueprint impressed upon the subconscious by the divine at the very moment of creation. Disease is not the will of God. It is a distortion of thought impressed upon the subconscious through fear, resentment, or belief in limitation. Healing, therefore, is not the importation of something foreign into the body. It is the restoration of the original divine order already written within. And the simplest, most direct way to awaken this inner pattern is through the whisper of truth before sleep. For in half slumber, the subconscious listens with unguarded receptivity and responds with astonishing faithfulness. The formula is beautifully simple. As you prepare for sleep, place your hand upon your body or heart, breathe gently, and whisper, "Every cell now sings with life and divine order. The law of harmony governs me. I am healed, whole, and strong." These words are not to be spoken with strain or desperation, but with calm assurance, as though you were affirming something already true. Let them flow out of you like a lullaby, soothing not only your body, but your inner self. As you whisper, picture radiant light suffusing every organ, every joint, every nerve. Imagine that light is the very life of God flowing freely, washing away all disorder, dissolving every false image of disease. Whisper again, and let the image deepen. Whisper again, and let gratitude rise. Whisper again, until the thought of health feels more real than the memory of pain. Some may say, "But I do not believe it. My body contradicts it." Yet this is precisely why the half-asleep state is sacred. In daylight, the conscious mind resists with skepticism, but at night, when the sentinel grows weary, the whispered word bypasses resistance and is planted directly into the soil of the subconscious. There it begins to work silently, invisibly, until its results emerge into the visible. Healing may come suddenly, as when a fever breaks overnight, or gradually, as when new strength rises day by day. But come it must, for the subconscious, once impressed, must express. The law cannot be broken. Do not complicate the formula. Do not whisper a dozen contradictory things, or shift from phrase to phrase in restless doubt. Choose a simple affirmative declaration of health, speak it with love and gratitude, and repeat it nightly until your body begins to mirror the truth. The subconscious does not grow weary of repetition. It thrives upon it. Each night of whispering is another brushstroke restoring the perfect image, another drop of water nourishing the seed, another step closer to full manifestation. And remember this, healing is not merely the removal of symptoms, but the restoration of wholeness, body, mind, and spirit aligned in harmony. So when you whisper, whisper not only for relief, but for renewal. Whisper not only for the vanishing of pain, but for the return of strength, energy, joy, and vitality. Whisper as one who claims inheritance, not as one who begs for mercy. For healing is your divine right, your spiritual heritage already written within you. And when you whisper with faith in the half-asleep state, you activate that heritage, and your body, like a faithful servant, obeys the command. Thus, let the formula guide you. Whisper softly, visualize clearly, feel gratefully, and persist nightly. Say with confidence, "Every cell now sings with life and divine order," and soon you will awaken not only with renewed health, but with the living testimony that God listens when you are half asleep, and that His law of healing is forever faithful. If there is one burden that weighs upon the minds of countless souls in every nation, it is the fear of lack, the gnawing sense that there is never enough, that one must struggle endlessly to survive, that prosperity is reserved for the fortunate few, while others remain chained to want. This belief in scarcity is not a law of the universe. It is a suggestion planted in the subconscious, accepted as truth, and then lived out in experience. Joseph Murphy taught with unshakable conviction that abundance is not something one must beg for, but a divine inheritance, a spiritual birthright flowing from the infinite source that never runs dry. Poverty, he declared, is not God's will, but man's false belief impressed upon his inner mind. And just as that false belief can be planted, so too can it be uprooted and replaced with the whisper of prosperity. The formula for prosperity is as simple as the law of seed and harvest. Each night, as you enter the sacred threshold of half sleep, whisper with calm assurance, "Infinite supply flows to me now. I am rich in every way. All my needs are met by divine law." Do not strain, do not plead. Speak as though you were already standing in the storehouse of heaven with its treasures flowing toward you. The subconscious does not distinguish between reality and vivid imagination. It responds only to what is impressed with feeling. Therefore, as you whisper, imagine yourself already living in abundance. See your bills paid with ease. Feel the joy of giving generously. Walk in the vision of a home filled with comfort and beauty. Hear the laughter of loved ones free from worry. The whisper, joined with this imagery, becomes a decree, and the subconscious must accept it as fact. Now the skeptic may say, "How can whispering words at night fill my bank account? How can imagination bring me wealth?" But they do not understand the law. The subconscious is the bridge between the invisible and the visible, the unseen source and the seen supply. When you whisper prosperity before sleep, you are not demanding money to fall from the sky. You are impressing abundance upon the inner mind, and the inner mind in turn aligns you with channels of supply. It stirs ideas, awakens intuition, attracts opportunities, and removes inner blocks that once prevented you from receiving. Wealth flows not because of chance, but because the subconscious, convinced of abundance, guides you into harmony with the law of circulation, the divine flow that never ceases. Consider the difference between whispering in fear and whispering in faith. The fearful man says, "I hope I will not lose everything," and his subconscious obediently reproduces circumstances that mirror his fear. The faithful man says, "I am supplied by infinite source," and his subconscious responds by orchestrating events that confirm his decree. The outer world is but a mirror of the inner state, and the mirror reflects what is whispered most consistently. Thus, the nightly practice of prosperity whispering is not superstition, but scientific spirituality. It plants the seed of abundance in the fertile soil of imagination until the harvest appears in form. Do not be deceived into thinking that prosperity is only for the select few, or that you must struggle endlessly to earn it. Wealth, rightly understood, is not greed, but flow the circulation of divine substance through your life. Just as the blood must flow freely through the body to sustain health, so too must substance flow freely through mind and matter to sustain prosperity. To block it with fear, resentment, or guilt is to invite poverty. To release it with faith, gratitude, and generosity is to invite increase. And every night, when you whisper prosperity in half sleep, you align yourself with that flow, opening the gates of your subconscious to let the river of supply pour through. So let your formula be firm yet gentle. Infinite supply flows to me now. I am rich in every way. All my needs are met by divine law. Repeat it until the words feel natural, until gratitude rises spontaneously, until your subconscious accepts abundance as its native condition. And when you awake, walk with quiet confidence, for you have sown the seed. The harvest may unfold gradually or swiftly, but unfold it must, for the law cannot fail. Prosperity is yours, not because you beg for it, but because you claim it as your divine inheritance. And God, who listens when you whisper half asleep, will see to it that the invisible wealth you affirm becomes visible in your world. There are those who would gladly trade all the gold in the world, all the treasures of kingdoms, all the fleeting triumphs of ambition, for one night of perfect rest and one day of unshakable peace. The modern mind, though surrounded by comforts and conveniences unknown to ages past, often lies in torments, thoughts restless, its emotions turbulent, its body weary from the ceaseless agitation of anxiety. Joseph Murphy knew that true peace is not found in external conditions, but in the alignment of the subconscious with divine harmony, for peace is a law, a presence, a spiritual reality that already exists within every soul. When the subconscious is impressed with peace, the nervous system obeys, the heartbeat steadies, the breath deepens, and the entire being enters into the rhythm of rest. And the most direct way to impress peace is to whisper it before sleep, when the conscious mind surrenders and the inner sanctuary opens wide. The formula for peace is gentle, soothing, and profoundly effective. I sleep in God's peace, and I rise in God's joy. Speak these words softly, timing them with your breath, letting them float upon the exhale like a lullaby. Do not rush, do not strain, simply let the whisper carry you into the stillness. As you speak, visualize yourself lying in a field beneath a starlit sky, the heavens vast above you, your body cradled by the earth, your heart beating in rhythm with the universe. Feel the serenity of nature enveloping you, the silence filled not with emptiness but with presence. With each repetition, imagine the worries of the day dissolving like mist in the morning sun, until nothing remains but the quiet assurance that all is well. This whisper is not a request but a declaration. You are not saying, I hope for peace, but I possess peace now. The subconscious accepts the statement as law and directs the body accordingly. The tension in your muscles loosens, the anxious thoughts drift away, and a profound calm rises from within. You may even find that as you persist in this practice, your dreams become gentler, more harmonious, filled with symbols of beauty rather than fear, for the subconscious, once impressed with peace, carries it into every level of your being. And when you awaken, you do not rise burdened but refreshed, not heavy but light, for the decree spoken in half-sleep governs both the night and the morning. Some may wonder whether such a simple phrase can truly calm a storm-tossed mind. Yet consider how easily the body responds to suggestion. A single fearful thought can quicken the pulse, a single memory can stir tears, a single worry can rob sleep. If negative suggestions can disturb so easily, then positive affirmations spoken with faith can heal with equal speed. Peace is not created by your whisper, it is already present as a divine reality. Your whisper simply removes the barrier of resistance, allowing what is eternally true to flow into conscious experience. As Christ said, peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you. That peace has never departed. It waits only for you to claim it. So tonight, when you lie upon your bed and the weight of the day presses upon you, do not surrender to agitation. Place your hand upon your heart, breathe deeply, and whisper with assurance, I sleep in God's peace and I rise in God's joy. Repeat it until your body softens, until your mind quiets, until gratitude wells up from within. Fall asleep with those words as your final thought, and you will awaken as though heaven itself had sung over you in the night. For God listens when you whisper in half sleep, and His eternal law ensures that peace, once impressed upon the subconscious, must manifest in the living rhythm of your days. Among all the longings of the human heart, few are as deep or as persistent as the desire for harmonious relationships. From the moment of birth, man seeks connection first with mother and father, then with family, friends, companions, and finally with the broader circle of society. And yet how many suffer from broken ties, from misunderstandings, from bitterness that corrodes joy, from loneliness that weighs heavier than poverty? Joseph Murphy taught that relationships, like all experiences, are reflections of the inner state impressed upon the subconscious. If you carry resentment, suspicion, or fear in your inner world, those very qualities will echo back to you in the form of discordant relationships. But if you plant in the subconscious seeds of love, harmony, and goodwill, then the law of mind ensures that these qualities must return, multiplied in your dealings with others. The key, as always, is the half-asleep whisper, for in that sacred interval you can dissolve the old pattern of discord and install a new one of love. The formula for relationships is direct and powerful. Divine love unites me with harmony. I radiate love, and love returns to me multiplied. Whisper these words softly as you drift toward slumber. Do not say them mechanically. Let them be wrapped in feeling. Imagine yourself surrounded by an atmosphere of warmth, kindness, and acceptance. Picture those with whom you have experienced tension or conflict, not as enemies, but as souls bathed in the same divine light as yourself. See golden threads of love connecting you, dissolving past grievances, knitting together a new pattern of unity. As you whisper, allow gratitude to rise, not gratitude for some distant hope, but gratitude that harmony is already established in the invisible, awaiting its manifestation in the visible. This whisper, repeated nightly, begins to reshape not only your subconscious image of others, but your very aura, the unseen vibration you radiate. People will begin to respond differently, sensing peace and goodwill where once they sensed tension. Old wounds may heal, unexpected reconciliations may occur, and new friendships may blossom seemingly out of nowhere. For the law of mind is exact. What you radiate within, you must attract without. If your subconscious accepts that divine love surrounds and fills you, then life cannot help but reflect that love in every relationship. It is important, too, to release the old impressions of resentment and hurt, for these are weeds in the garden of the subconscious. When you whisper the formula, let forgiveness be its companion. You may say, I release all who have wronged me. I wish them life, love, and peace. Do not dwell upon the wrongs, for to rehearse them is to replant them. Instead, affirm harmony until it becomes the dominant vibration within. The subconscious, once saturated with images of love, cannot maintain the old pattern of discord. It must dissolve it and replace it with the new. Some may scoff, saying, words cannot change people. People are who they are. But they forget that what changes first is not the other person, but your own subconscious pattern. And when that changes, everything shifts. Your perception changes, your behavior changes, your radiance changes. And as these shift, the relationships around you mirror the new state. Often, the person you once called an enemy appears to have changed, when in truth, it was your own inner state that changed, compelling a new outer reflection. So whisper with assurance, divine love unites me with harmony. I radiate love, and love returns to me multiplied. Say it as you breathe. Say it until the words melt into your being. Say it until you fall asleep with a smile of peace upon your lips. Do this night after night, and soon you will awaken into a world where bitterness has dissolved, loneliness has vanished, and your relationships are clothed in the harmony of divine love. For God listens when you are half asleep, and when he hears the whisper of love, he answers with a world transformed by that very love. As one advances in the practice of nightly whispering, there comes a point when the general affirmations of health, abundance, and peace may be refined into more specific decrees. Just as a master gardener, once he has cultivated a flourishing field, may bend down to tend carefully to a single plant, so too may you direct your whispered word toward a particular aspect of your being. Joseph Murphy often reminded his listeners that the subconscious mind governs every function of the body. It regulates heartbeat, circulates the blood, heals wounds, digests food, and maintains the intricate harmony of billions of cells without your conscious interference. Because it governs these functions, it can also restore them when disorder appears. And one of the most powerful methods for impressing this truth is to call the organ, limb, or system by name, addressing it directly with words of divine order. Picture yourself lying upon your bed, half asleep, your body relaxed, your conscious mind softening into silence. Place your attention upon the part of your body that calls for healing: your heart, your lungs, your stomach, your eyes, your nerves, whatever it may be. With tenderness, speak directly to it, as though speaking to a faithful servant who has simply lost its way. Whisper, heart, you are strong. You beat in perfect rhythm with the life of God. Or whisper, lungs, you are filled with the breath of spirit. You breathe freely, deeply, joyfully. Or whisper, stomach, you digest and assimilate perfectly, guided by divine order. The subconscious does not hear these words as metaphors, it hears them as commands. And because it governs the organ, it sets into motion the processes required to fulfill the decree. Some may feel strange at first, addressing body parts by name, but the strangeness passes quickly when results begin to appear. Remember that the subconscious is childlike in its responsiveness. It delights in clear, specific instruction. Just as a worker in a great workshop needs clear directions to complete his task, so too does the subconscious respond most powerfully when given precise, vivid suggestions. By calling the organ by name, you focus the subconscious power like a beam of light upon the exact area of need, and the law of healing is accelerated. It is essential, however, to speak always in the present tense and with calm authority. Do not say, "Heart, you will get better." The subconscious does not operate in the future. It operates only in the now. Say instead, "Heart, you are now beating with divine harmony." Do not whisper with desperation, for desperation suggests doubt. Whisper with the quiet tone of certainty, as though you are announcing a fact already accomplished. Feel gratitude rise as you speak, for gratitude seals the suggestion with conviction. And as you repeat the whisper night after night, your subconscious, faithful and exact, will reproduce in your body the condition you have declared. Many testimonies have borne witness to this method. There are those who, tormented by irregular heartbeat, whispered nightly to their heart until rhythm returned. There are those who, weakened by respiratory illness, whispered to their lungs until breath came with ease. There are those whose nerves were frayed by anxiety, who whispered, "Nerves, you are calm, steady, filled with peace," and soon felt serenity return. These are not fantasies or wishful thinking. They are demonstrations of law. The subconscious governs the body, and when it accepts a new command, it reorganizes tissues, circulations, and functions to match the impression. Therefore, if you suffer in any part of your body, do not resign yourself to fate. Do not declare, "This is incurable." Instead, enter the sacred threshold of half sleep and whisper directly to the organ by name, as a master speaks to his servant, as a creator commands his creation. Speak with love, with certainty, with gratitude, and know that your words are not falling upon deaf ears. They are sinking into the very intelligence that animates your cells, and that intelligence, being one with God, must obey the law of harmony. And soon, the organ will respond, the disorder will dissolve, and the perfect pattern of divine order will shine once more through your body. There was a man who had endured the slow torment of insomnia for nearly a decade, a burden invisible to others, but devastating to his inner world. Each night he would lie awake upon his bed, his body exhausted, yet his mind restless, racing in endless circles of worry and analysis. He tried every remedy that the world suggested, herbal teas, medicines, exercises, even exhausting himself with long walks in the hope that fatigue would conquer wakefulness, but nothing could silence the ceaseless chatter of his conscious mind. He dreaded the approach of night, for night meant struggle, frustration, and the humiliation of waking yet again without rest. His days grew dim, his work suffered, his temper shortened, and his very sense of life began to wither. One evening, however, he stumbled upon the writings of Joseph Murphy. As he read, his weary eyes fell upon a single line that pierced his heart. Your subconscious controls all the vital processes of your body, and it never sleeps. Impress it with peace before slumber, and it will obey. These words struck him like a ray of hope breaking through a storm. For the first time, he understood that his insomnia was not a curse from God, nor a permanent defect, but the result of negative impressions, fear of sleeplessness, expectation of failure, and the restless rehearsals of his conscious mind. He realized that the very thing he dreaded most, sleep, could become the sacred threshold through which he impressed peace upon his subconscious. That night, he tried what Murphy prescribed. Instead of fighting his thoughts or begging for rest, he lay upon his bed, placed his hand over his heart, and whispered softly, "I sleep in God's peace, and I rise in God's joy." At first the old fear rose up. It will not work. You will fail again. You will toss until dawn. But he persisted, repeating the whisper gently with each exhale, as though singing a lullaby to his own soul. He pictured himself already asleep, resting peacefully, his face serene, his body relaxed, his mind quiet. He allowed gratitude to swell within him, as though the rest were already his. And as he whispered again and again, a strange calm began to descend upon him. For the first time in years, his body softened, his breath steadied, and without realizing it, he drifted into slumber. The next morning he awoke astonished. Though the night had not been perfect, he had slept for several uninterrupted hours more than he had known in years. Encouraged, he repeated the practice the following night, and the next, and the next. Each time he whispered his simple decree. Each time he pictured himself resting. Each time he gave thanks. The grip of insomnia loosened. Within a few weeks he was sleeping full nights, his body restored, his mind refreshed, his days filled with vigor he had long forgotten. Those who knew him marveled at the change, and when they asked what medicine he had discovered, he smiled and said, "No medicine, only the whisper of peace." This man's testimony became a living witness to the immutable law that the subconscious responds to the word impressed upon it in half sleep. His insomnia was not cured by force, not by struggle, not by desperate effort, but by surrendering to the divine rhythm of whisper, image, and gratitude. He discovered that sleep, which had once been his torment, was in truth his healer, and that by aligning himself with the law of mind, the peace of God entered his subconscious and rearranged his nights. His story teaches us that no affliction, however long endured, is beyond the reach of divine law. Even a habit carved deep by years of fear can be dissolved when faith is whispered nightly into the half-asleep state. For the subconscious does not measure the length of suffering. It only responds to the impression given now. And the law is faithful. Whisper peace, and peace will return. Whisper rest, and rest will come. Whisper harmony, and harmony will reign. Thus was the man freed from insomnia not by chance but by law, by the eternal truth that God listens when you whisper as you drift into sleep. Faith, like a flame, begins with a spark, but must be tended if it is to become a steady fire. Many souls whisper their affirmations faithfully for a few nights, feel a flicker of hope, and then, when immediate results do not appear, allow discouragement to snuff out the light. Joseph Murphy warned against this subtle danger, for he knew that the subconscious responds to persistence, not to fleeting efforts. The law of mind is exact. What is consistently impressed must be expressed. Yet consistency is only possible when faith is nurtured, when momentum is built day by day until belief grows stronger than doubt. And one of the most practical and powerful methods to build this momentum is the keeping of a nightly and daily journal of impressions, whispers, and results. Imagine that you have whispered peace before sleep for 7 nights, and though your circumstances may not yet have shifted dramatically, you notice a subtle calm within, or perhaps a small sign, unexpected kindness, a moment of clarity, a restful dream. Write it down, record it as testimony. By doing so, you engrave upon your conscious mind the evidence of law at work, and you remind your subconscious that its seeds are sprouting, even if beneath the soil. The act of journaling is itself an affirmation, a reinforcement of belief. It says, I expect results, therefore I record them. I trust the law, therefore I watch for its manifestation. Each entry, no matter how small, is like another brick laid upon the foundation of faith. In time, the pages of your journal become a treasury of proof. On days when doubt whispers, "This is not working," you need only turn back and read the signs that already appeared. You will recall the night you slept peacefully after months of restlessness, the morning when an unexpected solution came, the week when relationships softened and harmony returned. Each memory strengthens faith, and faith, once strengthened, accelerates the law's operation. Doubt feeds on forgetfulness, but faith feeds on remembrance. By recording even the smallest evidences, you silence the inner critic and nurture the inner believer. Murphy often reminded his students of the scripture, "Faith without works is dead. He explained that the work of faith is not frantic striving, but the steady application of spiritual law in daily life. Journaling is such a work. It is the outward act that corresponds with the inward belief, the visible record of the invisible process. It turns faith from an abstract feeling into a concrete practice, something you can see, touch, and revisit. In this way, momentum is built, and what once seemed fragile grows strong. So begin tonight, not only with your whisper, but with your pen. Whisper your decree in half sleep. Then upon waking, record what you whispered, how you felt, and any sign, however small, that followed. Do this daily, and watch as your faith, once flickering, grows into a steady flame. For momentum is not built in leaps, but in steps, and with each step your subconscious becomes more convinced, more responsive, more obedient to your decree. And as your faith builds, the law works swifter, for the subconscious is quickened by expectation. In this way, the whisper becomes not a solitary act, but part of a growing current, a river of faith carrying you forward into answered prayer. There's a mystery of multiplied power in faith that is shared, and Joseph Murphy, while emphasizing the personal responsibility of each soul to impress truth upon the subconscious, also hinted at the immense amplification that occurs when minds unite in a common vibration. Just as a single note on a violin is beautiful, but a full orchestra can move the heart to tears, so too does the whisper of faith gain magnitude when it is joined with others in harmony. If repetition builds momentum in the individual, then collective practice builds a momentum so powerful that it seems to draw heaven down to earth. Families, friends, congregations, even strangers connected by a shared intention can magnify their results simply by practicing the same whisper ritual together. Picture a household where each member, before sleep, retreats into silence, not with scattered thoughts, but with the same decree upon their lips. A husband whispers, "Peace governs this home." A wife whispers, "Abundance flows to every need." A child whispers, "God guides my mind." Though spoken in different words, all rise into the same current of faith, reinforcing one another invisibly. The subconscious minds of each become tuned to a single vibration, and the collective subconscious of the family begins to operate like a mighty magnet, drawing harmony, supply, and health to the whole household. Soon arguments diminish, prosperity increases, and a peace settles over the home that visitors can sense without being told. This is not sentimentality, it is law multiplied through unity. Extend this principle further. Imagine a circle of friends who agree to whisper the same decree nightly for 21 days. Perhaps they are all seeking financial freedom, so they whisper in unison, "Infinite supply flows to us now. We are prosperous and free." Each whispers alone in the quiet of half sleep, yet together they form a choir of faith, unseen but mighty. Their combined impression upon the collective atmosphere stirs opportunities, attracts ideas, and accelerates manifestation. One receives a promotion, another clears an old debt, another discovers a new talent for income, and all rejoice in the shared victory. What might have taken months alone often unfolds swiftly in unity. Even entire congregations can harness this truth. A minister once guided his community to whisper nightly, "Divine love unites us, and peace fills this city." Within weeks, tensions that had long troubled the town began to soften. Neighbors reconciled, cooperation replaced division, and the atmosphere of the community lifted tangibly. Skeptics dismissed it as coincidence, but those who practiced knew better. They had witnessed the law of mind amplified through collective practice. Why does this work? Because thought is energy, and energy resonates. When one person whispers with faith, he sets a vibration in motion. When many whisper together, those vibrations converge into a great current that sweeps obstacles aside and prepares the way for manifestation. The subconscious of each individual is influenced by the shared momentum, making belief easier, doubt weaker, and persistence more natural. In short, the group lends strength to each member until the law has accomplished its work. Therefore, if you wish to build faith momentum to its fullest, do not practice alone, only invite others to join you. Form a sacred agreement with your family, your friends, your community. Each night, whisper the same decree before sleep. Keep journals, share testimonies, encourage one another, and you will find that results multiply beyond measure. But when two or three whisper in harmony, the infinite is in the midst of them, and God, who listens in the silence of half-sleep, delights to answer with abundance, health, and peace that overflow, not only to the individual, but to all who are joined in faith. No matter how faithfully one whispers at night, no matter how diligently one repeats affirmations, there comes a moment when doubt creeps in like a thief in the dark. The conscious mind awakens in the morning and says, "But nothing has changed. The pain is still here. The bills still arrive. The conflict still lingers." And many, hearing that voice, abandon the practice altogether, declaring that it does not work. Yet Joseph Murphy warned that this is the very snare that keeps countless souls bound to their old patterns. They dig up the seed before it can sprout. They whisper one night in faith, and the next day in despair, and so the subconscious, receiving contradictory impressions, cannot bring forth the harvest. The key, therefore, is to break the cycle of doubt by training the conscious mind to release its demand for instant results and to trust the silent processes of the inner law. Think of the farmer who plants wheat in his field. After one day, the earth looks unchanged. After a week, the field seems barren. But the farmer does not run out in frustration, dig up the soil and cry, "The seed has failed." He knows that unseen forces are at work beneath the surface, forces he cannot control but can trust. He waters, he waits, he believes, and in due time the green shoots break through. So it is with your whispers. Each night's decree is a seed, and though you may not see evidence at once, the subconscious has already received it and set processes into motion. Doubt is the farmer digging up the soil. Faith is the farmer who waits patiently, knowing the harvest is certain. When doubt arises, the solution is not to fight it with panic, but to replace it gently with a reaffirmation of truth. If the mind says, "This is not working," answer softly, "Every word I whisper is a seed, and seeds take time to grow." If it says, "But the evidence denies it," reply, "The unseen precedes the seen. My harvest is ripening now." Speak these counters not with anger, but with calm authority, reminding yourself that the subconscious does not operate according to your impatience, but according to eternal law. The very persistence of doubt is itself proof that the seed is germinating, for weeds often sprout quickly to distract the farmer from the slower, stronger crop beneath. Murphy often likened this persistence of faith to spiritual maturity. The child demands immediate gratification, but the adult understands that time is part of the process. In the same way, immature faith prays tonight and expects the world tomorrow, while mature faith whispers nightly, day after day, with serene confidence, knowing that results are inevitable. To cultivate this maturity, set your mind to a rule. Never contradict your nightly whispers during the day. If doubt arises, do not rehearse it, do not feed. I replace it with gratitude and a quiet reminder that the law is already at work. Thus, breaking the cycle of doubt is not about suppressing questions, but about refusing to water them with attention. Let the doubts arise, acknowledge them, and then turn again to faith, as a sailor turns his rudder back to course when the winds push him aside. Over time, the habit of faith becomes stronger than the habit of doubt, and the cycle is broken. Then your whispers, no longer interrupted by contrary impressions, can bear their full fruit. And you will awaken one morning to find that the harvest, long unseen, has appeared. And you will marvel that it came so suddenly, though in truth it had been ripening all along. Every ritual, every whisper, every affirmation repeated in the twilight of half-sleep builds toward a single culminating act, the final declaration that seals the work in certainty. Joseph Murphy insisted that no prayer, no decree, no impression upon the subconscious should be left hanging in the air, unfinished and open to the interference of doubt. Just as a craftsman, having laid the last stone, strikes it with finality to fix the structure, so too must the practitioner close each session with a statement of completion. This is the moment of faith alignment, the solemn act of declaring, "It is done." These words are not a mere flourish. They are the seal of conviction, the signature at the end of the decree, the release that hands the matter over fully to the subconscious and to God without reservation. Consider what happens when a person prays or whispers, but does not release the desire. He whispers health, but then clings to fear, whispering inwardly, "What if it does not happen?" He whispers prosperity, but then spends the day fretting, "How will it ever come?" He whispers peace, but then rehearses arguments in his mind. In doing so, he pulls back the very seed he planted, as though writing a letter but never sending it. The final declaration of, "It is done," prevents this error. It is the act of trust that says, "I have planted the seed, I have impressed the subconscious, I have spoken the word, and now I leave it in the hands of divine law." Without this release, the whisper remains a request. With it, the whisper becomes a decree. In practice, this declaration is beautifully simple. As you finish your chosen formula, Heather, for healing, abundance, peace, or love, whisper softly but firmly, "It is done. Thank you, Father." Say it with quiet assurance, not as a desperate hope, but as a statement of fact. Feel within your heart the certainty that the matter is already settled in the unseen, awaiting only its appearance in the visible. Then cease your whispering. Do not continue in anxious repetition, for repetition beyond faith becomes fear. Instead, allow yourself to drift into sleep with the peaceful awareness that the work is complete. This final act mirrors the very pattern of creation itself. In Genesis, the Creator spoke the word, "Let there be light," and then, seeing that it was good, rested. Creation did not require endless pleading or ceaseless effort. It required the word spoken in authority and the rest that followed in trust. So too must you learn to rest after your whisper, to declare, "It is done," and surrender into slumber, confident that the subconscious, joined with infinite intelligence, is even then carrying out your decree. Murphy emphasized that this release is not passive but profoundly active. It is the act of aligning your conscious mind with the truth that what you desire is already yours in the unseen. By saying, "It is done," you move from the posture of asking into the posture of receiving, from hoping into knowing. And it is in knowing that miracles occur, for the subconscious is convinced not by wavering requests, but by firm declarations. Therefore, make it your practice never to end a nightly whisper without this sacred seal. Whether you whisper once or 100 times, always close with the final declaration, "It is done. Thank you, Father." Let those words be the last sound upon your lips before sleep. Let them be the benediction that ushers you into slumber, and when you awaken, carry their certainty into your day, resisting the temptation to undo them with worry. For once the seed is planted and sealed, the harvest is inevitable. The declaration of completion ensures that your whispers are not scattered petitions, but royal decrees, finished and delivered, awaiting their full manifestation in the garden of your life. No teaching is more convincing than the evidence of lives changed, for principles remain abstract until they clothe themselves in flesh and circumstance. Joseph Murphy filled his works with stories of ordinary men and women who, by practicing these whispered affirmations in the half-asleep state, found their burdens lifted and their destinies reshaped. These testimonies, though simple in their details, carry a power greater than argument, for they reveal that the law works not for the few, but for all who apply it with faith. They are the living proof that God listens in the silence, that the subconscious obeys without resistance, and that miracles unfold when whispered truth is planted nightly in the fertile soil of twilight. Consider the woman who lived in constant fear of financial ruin. She had endured years of debt, creditors pressing upon her, and the humiliation of never having enough to provide even basic comforts for her children. In despair, she turned to Murphy's teaching and began each night to whisper softly, "Infinite supply flows to me now. I am abundantly provided for." At first, her conscious mind mocked her with images of unpaid bills, but she persisted. Within weeks, opportunities arose that she had never anticipated. A promotion at work, unexpected gifts, and a series of small coincidences that lifted her out of lack. In less than a year, she had cleared her debts and was living in comfort. When asked how she had accomplished this, she said, "I changed what I whispered, and my world changed with me." Or take the story of a man tormented by bitterness after a painful divorce. His nights were filled with restless thoughts of anger, his heart hardened, his mind poisoned by the memory of betrayal. Yet he discovered that whispering forgiveness before sleep could dissolve the chains that bound him. Night after night he whispered, "Divine love fills me and flows through me. I release all resentment. I radiate peace." At first it felt like a lie, but in time he began to sense a softening within. One morning he awoke and realized with astonishment that the bitterness had vanished. He no longer carried the weight of anger, but felt free, light, and ready to love again. The whisper of love had rewritten his inner script, and his outer life followed with harmony restored. Another testimony comes from a young student paralyzed by fear of failure. She whispered nightly, "My mind is clear. God guides me. Every answer is within me." She pictured herself sitting calmly at her desk, writing with ease, smiling with confidence. Within weeks, her grades soared, her anxiety dissolved, and she became one of the top students in her class. Years later, she credited her success not to endless studying alone, but to the nightly whispers that transformed her fear into faith. Then there was the elderly man who had suffered from chronic illness, confined by weakness and despair. He learned to whisper directly to his body, saying, "Every organ of my body is now functioning in divine order. I am strong. I am whole. I am renewed." As he whispered these words in the half-asleep state, he imagined himself walking freely, breathing easily, and living with vitality. Slowly, the vitality returned. His friends marveled, believing it a miracle, but he smiled and said, "It was no miracle. It was law." I whispered health, and health answered, "These stories are not isolated accidents. They are patterns, demonstrations of a universal law that applies to all who use it." Each testimony reveals the same principle. What you whisper before sleep, the subconscious accepts. What the subconscious accepts, it expresses, and what it expresses, life reveals. Whether it is healing, prosperity, peace, or love, the law does not discriminate. It responds with equal faithfulness to every soul who dares to whisper truth with persistence and gratitude. Let these testimonies encourage you. When doubt tempts you to abandon the practice, remember the woman freed from debt, the man released from bitterness, the student delivered from fear, the elder restored to health. Their victories are evidence that yours too is certain. For God listens not to a chosen few, but to all his children. And if he listened to them in the silence of half-sleep, he will listen to you. Whisper tonight, persist tomorrow. And soon your story will join theirs as another testimony of transformation. There's a tendency in the human mind to limit its whispers to the immediate and the urgento relief from pain, to payment of bills, to harmony in relationships. While these are noble and necessary, Joseph Murphy taught that the subconscious is not bound by the present moment alone. It shapes not only today but tomorrow, not only the next hour but the unfolding years. Just as a farmer sows seeds not for today's meal but for the harvest of the season to come, so too may you whisper decrees that shape the trajectory of your entire future. The subconscious, being timeless, does not distinguish between past, present, and future. It accepts only the impression, and then it moves steadily to bring it forth in the proper season. Therefore, one of the most profound applications of this practice is to whisper into the future, to lay down patterns of health, joy, youthfulness, and prosperity that will manifest in the days, months, and years ahead. Imagine a youth fearful of aging, whispering nightly, "Every night I grow stronger, younger in spirit, and filled with vitality." He is not denying the passage of time, but affirming that divine life continually renews him, that his subconscious blueprint remains perfect, untouched by decay. The effect is that he carries into adulthood not dread but expectancy, not frailty but vitality. Or consider an elderly woman troubled by society's insistence that her best years are behind her. She whispers softly before sleep, "I live in God's eternal now." Every day brings new joy, new wisdom, new love. Her subconscious, impressed with this decree, responds by quickening her spirit, revitalizing her body, and opening doors of opportunity even in her later years. She finds herself radiant with life, while others complain of decline. This practice of whispering into the future is especially powerful when it is joined with imagery. Do not merely say, "I will be prosperous," for the subconscious does not operate in the future tense. Instead, say, "I am continually prospered by divine law." The years ahead unfold with abundance. Then imagine yourself 5, 10, even 20 years from now, walking in health, surrounded by love, living in abundance, your face radiant with peace. Whisper the decree until the image is impressed so deeply that the subconscious accepts it as its eternal pattern. The result is not only the transformation of today, but the steady unfolding of tomorrow in alignment with your vision. Murphy often reminded his students of the scripture, "The path of the righteous is as the shining light that shineth more and more unto the perfect day." This is not poetic fancy, but metaphysical law. The light of your life is meant to increase, not diminish. Your tomorrows are meant to be brighter than your yesterdays, your strength greater, your joy deeper, your wisdom fuller. Whispering into the future is the means by which you cooperate with this law, planting seeds of light in the soil of time. And because the subconscious is timeless, those seeds begin to sprout immediately, influencing your decisions, shaping your habits, attracting circumstances, and guiding you toward the very destiny you have decreed. Therefore, do not limit your whispers to the urgent need of the moment. Lift your eyes beyond the immediate horizon and declare the kind of life you will live in the years ahead. Whisper, "Every night I grow stronger. Every morning I awaken renewed. My future is filled with joy, peace, and abundance." Fall asleep with these decrees upon your lips, and you will awaken not only to a brighter tomorrow, but to a destiny that unfolds steadily in harmony with your whispered vision. For God listens not only to your cries of today, but to your dreams of tomorrow. And what you impress upon the subconscious in half sleep becomes the pattern by which your future is fashioned. If the whisper of a single individual, spoken softly in the twilight of half sleep, can heal disease, dissolve debt, restore harmony, and awaken peace, what then might happen if millions upon millions of souls, scattered across the earth yet united in spirit, chose each night to whisper words of truth into the silence? Joseph Murphy often hinted at this greater vision, a world transformed not by politics or force, but by the quiet revolution of consciousness. For the subconscious of humanity is not isolated in fragments, it is a collective ocean, and each individual mind, like a drop, contributes to its tides. When one soul whispers, the ripples are felt nearby. When many whisper together, the waves gather strength until the whole sea is stirred into movement. Imagine then a globe where men, women, and children of every nation, every faith, every walk of life, as they lay their heads upon their pillows, whisper words of love, health, abundance, and peace. A mother in India whispers, "Divine love fills my family." A businessman in New York whispers, "Infinite supply flows to me now." A farmer in Africa whispers, "My land is blessed and fruitful." A child in Brazil whispers, "God guides me." Though they are separated by oceans and cultures, their whispers converge in the invisible field of consciousness, weaving a fabric of harmony across the world. And the subconscious, being one in essence, receives the impression as a unified decree, moving all of life toward a higher pattern of order. The results would be astonishing. Wars, which are but the collective manifestation of fear and hatred impressed upon the group subconscious, would wither as love and harmony became the dominant impression. Poverty, sustained by generations of belief in lack, would dissolve as humanity collectively affirmed abundance. Disease rooted in fear and separation from divine order would lose its grip as multitudes whispered nightly of health and vitality. The very atmosphere of the world would change, becoming lighter, more radiant, charged with the invisible fragrance of peace. Future generations would awaken into a planet that feels as though heaven itself has taken residence upon the earth. Skeptics will call this a dream, but Murphy would remind us that all great transformations began as whispers in the imagination. The airplane was once a dream, the cure for diseases once a vision, freedom for the oppressed once a whisper in the dark. If these dreams, whispered persistently, reshaped history, how much more can the collective whisper of divine truth reshape the destiny of mankind? For the subconscious is not limited to individuals alone. It is the matrix of humanity, and what is impressed upon it en masse must eventually express in the conditions of nation. Therefore, let this vision stir you beyond your personal desires. When you whisper before sleep, know that you are not only planting seeds for your own harvest, but contributing to the harvest of the world. When you declare, I rest in God's peace, you are not merely preparing for your own slumber, you are adding your voice to the great chorus calling for peace upon earth. When you whisper, infinite supply flows to me now, you help dissolve the ancient belief in scarcity that afflicts millions. When you affirm, divine love unites me with harmony, you are repairing not only your relationships, but the broken bonds of humanity itself. And imagine, if you will, a future where this practice becomes universal, where schools teach children to whisper truth before sleep, where families gather each evening for a moment of shared affirmation, where entire communities and nations set aside a minute at night to whisper together. It would not require effort, nor money, nor revolution only, the soft murmur of lips, the steady persistence of faith, the shared conviction that God listens in the silence. And with each passing night, the world would heal a little more, until one day it awakens to discover that heaven is no longer a far-off dream, but a living reality here and now. It is not enough to hear of these truths only with the intellect. They must be practiced, embodied, lived, for the subconscious responds not to theories, but to impressions carried out with feeling and repetition. Therefore, let us enter together into a guided rehearsal, a living demonstration of the whisper practice that Joseph Murphy so passionately taught. Imagine yourself now preparing for rest. The room is dim, the day's labors behind you, and you feel the gentle pull of drowsiness as the mind loosens its grip upon the details of the outer world. You settle into comfort, your body at ease, and you allow your breath to find its natural rhythm, slow and steady, like the tide of the sea moving in and out. Now place your hand upon your heart. Feel the quiet throb beneath your palm, steady, faithful, unceasing. This is life itself, the divine rhythm moving through you, the pulse of God beating within your being. As you rest in this awareness, begin to whisper softly, just barely audible, with the same tenderness that a mother uses to soothe her child. Say gently, every cell of my body is radiant with divine light. Every organ functions in perfect harmony. I am whole, I am strong, I am renewed. Whisper it once, then again, allowing the words to align with your breath. With each exhale, release the phrase as though it were a gift sinking into the depths of your being. As you whisper, bring into your imagination a vision of golden light streaming from above, entering the crown of your head and flowing downward through your body. See this light not as a vague glow, but as a radiant, living substance, filling every fiber of your being. Watch as it courses through your veins, illuminates your bones, clears your organs, and washes away all disorder. Picture it as liquid sunshine, warm and healing, restoring every cell to its original pattern of perfection. As the light fills you, feel it sense the warmth, the ease, the relief, as though your body itself were responding in gratitude. Repeat the whisper in rhythm with this vision. Every cell of my body is radiant with divine light. As you speak, see the cells glowing, alive, singing with harmony. Every organ functions in perfect harmony. See your heart beating steadily, your lungs expanding with ease, your stomach digesting smoothly, every system cooperating as a symphony of life. I am whole. I am strong. I am renewed. Picture yourself rising in the morning, filled with energy, moving with lightness, smiling with joy. Allow gratitude to flood your heart as though it were already accomplished, for indeed, in the unseen, it is already done. This is the essence of guided rehearsal. Whisper, visualize, feel. Whisper as decree, visualize as blueprint, feel as confirmation. The whisper directs, the image shapes, the emotion seals. Together they form a circuit of power that bypasses the doubting conscious mind and impresses the subconscious with authority. And as you drift nearer to sleep, let the whisper grow softer, let the image grow brighter, let the feeling deepen until your last conscious thought is one of radiant health and gratitude. Then release it fully, surrender to sleep, and know with certainty that the subconscious, faithful and tireless, is even then reproducing in your body the pattern you have impressed. This is how you rehearse healing. This is how you make the invisible visible. This is how you cooperate with divine law, not through strain or effort, but through the quiet whisper of truth clothed in image and feeling. And tonight, as you practice this, you will discover that you need not wait for miracles. They are already unfolding. For the moment the subconscious accepts the impression, the law of expression has already begun. Having rehearsed the whisper of health, clothed with golden light and vivid imagery, we now ascend to the higher octave of gratitude and finality, where the word is not only spoken but sealed. For gratitude is the fragrance of faith, the assurance that what you have whispered is already accomplished in the unseen and is even now pressing to appear in the seen. Without gratitude, whispers remain petitions. With gratitude, they become proclamations. This rehearsal, therefore, is not only about repeating words, but about embodying the state of already having received. It is about whispering as though heaven itself has already said yes. Settle again into comfort, your breath steady, your body relaxed, your heart open. Place your hand once more upon your chest, and this time, as you whisper, allow a gentle smile to rise upon your lips, not forced, but born of the quiet joy that you are participating in a divine law that cannot fail. Whisper softly, I am healed, I am whole, I am supplied. With each phrase, feel as though it were already true, not tomorrow, not someday, but now. Whisper, I am healed. And as you do, let gratitude surge within, as though your body had already responded, as though strength were already coursing through your limbs. Whisper, I am whole. And as you do, picture yourself moving, living, laughing in perfect harmony, and feel the thankfulness as though it were already real. Whisper, I am supplied. And as you do, see your needs met, your table full, your bills paid, your hands free to give generously, and let gratitude overflow like a fountain. Now, add the sacred seal. After each round of whispers, affirm quietly but firmly, it is done. Thank you, Father. These words are the closing of the circle, the final brushstroke that completes the painting, the signature that marks the decree as finished. Feel, as you say them, the release of all striving, the surrender of all doubt, the sweet rest that comes when you know the work is complete. Imagine yourself placing your request into the hands of God, and then stepping back, trusting Him to bring it forth. Whisper again, it is done. Thank you, Father. Let it echo through your being until peace settles over you like a warm blanket. Allow yourself, as you rehearse, to merge whisper, gratitude, and rest into a single rhythm. Whisper the decree, see the image, feel the gratitude, declare the completion, and then let silence carry you deeper into slumber. This is not a mechanical exercise. It is a living act of creation, a sacred collaboration between your conscious word, your subconscious acceptance, and the infinite intelligence that governs all things. As you practice, you will find that your very state of being changes. Anxiety fades, replaced by assurance, strain dissolves, replaced by ease, doubt falls silent, replaced by trust. And in that state, you enter into what Scripture calls the peace that passeth all understanding. This is the true art of whispering in half sleep, not only speaking words, but embodying their fulfillment, not only imagining, but feeling with gratitude, not only desiring, but declaring completion. When you rehearse in this way, your subconscious does not merely hear your words. It feels your conviction. It sees your vision. It absorbs your gratitude, and it receives your finality. And having received, it must obey, for the law is sure. What is impressed will be expressed. So tonight, as you prepare for rest, do not only whisper your truth, whisper it with gratitude, whisper it with joy, whisper it with the certainty of completion. Seal it with, "It is done." Thank you, Father. Then let go, let sleep take you, and know beyond all question that your subconscious has accepted the decree, and God Himself has affirmed it in the silence. Every great journey must find its completion in a call to live the truth that has been revealed, and so now, having walked through the law, the testimonies, the imagery, and the guided whispers, we arrive at the closing of this sacred teaching. The truth has been laid before you. God listens when you whisper in the silence of half sleep. The subconscious obeys the decrees you plant, and life itself is reshaped by the words you dare to repeat with faith. The only question that remains is whether you will carry this knowledge as theory, letting it gather dust in the mind, or whether you will step into practice and let it remake your destiny. Joseph Murphy never tired of saying that the law works not for the hearer but for the doer, not for the curious but for the consistent. And so tonight, and every night henceforth, you are invited into the holy experiment of practice, the discipline of whispering as you drift to sleep. Begin with a commitment. For 21 nights without fail, you will whisper your decree as you enter the threshold of slumber.
Choose your formula with clarity, whether for healing, prosperity, peace, or love, and hold to it with persistence. Do not change it in restlessness or abandon it in doubt.
Whisper it, visualize it, feel gratitude for it, seal it with the words, "It is done." Thank you, Father. Keep a record, as was taught, and watch for the signs of transformation. They may begin subtly and unexpected calm, a sudden idea, a small coincidence, but if you persist, they will grow until the invisible becomes visible, and the whispered word stands before you in flesh and form. But do not stop with yourself alone. Share this practice with others. Invite a friend, a family member, or even an entire group to join you in whispering nightly. Teach your children the power of the subconscious, guiding them to plant seeds of confidence, wisdom, and love before sleep. Spread the law, not as dogma, but as living testimony. Tell others what you have seen, what you have experienced, how a simple whisper changed your life. In this way, you will not only multiply your own faith, but contribute to the greater vision of a healed world, a world where millions whisper together and the collective subconscious rises into harmony with divine order. And let your final act be participation. Right now, as this message closes, whisper aloud, yes, even here and now, your own decree. Say softly, "God hears me now. My word is law. My life is transformed." Let it be your declaration, your covenant, your beginning. And as you close your eyes tonight, let the whisper echo until you slip into sleep, knowing beyond all question that God listens, the subconscious receives, and the law is already working. Therefore, the call to action is simple yet profound. Whisper tonight, whisper tomorrow, whisper for 21 nights and beyond. Share the teaching with others, record the results, and let your life become the testimony that inspires countless more. For you are not merely a student of this law, you are now its practitioner, its demonstrator, its living witness. And as you walk this path, your life will confirm the eternal truth, that God listens when you are half asleep, that every whispered word is seed, and that your destiny is nothing less than the harvest of the thoughts you dare to plant in silence. Whisper, believe, release, and receive. The law is faithful, the promise is sure, and the miracle is already yours.